If you'd like to support the channel, please consider joining my Patreon. The link is in the description. No Sodor fleet is complete without Thomas the Tank Engine. Over the years, I've had a few different Bachmann Thomas models, some of which I adapted with rather funky funnels, either too long, bit mangled, or slightly wonky. This is because the soothe smoke units I install are too big to fit inside the pre-existing funnel, so they have to be removed and replaced. I used to use a plastic straw, but this time I unlocked a new mode, 3D printing. Originally, I only planned to build Oliver and Duck for Oliver's cliffside collapse, but Caleb Train rightfully convinced me to take a crack at the other engines. The design for the shell was created by the LBSC Thomas and then was 3D printed. Initially it appeared to have warped slightly, probably due to less than ideal print settings. To fix this, I tried heating the resin and sandwiching it between two wooden blocks. This wasn't very effective, so we decided to add bars to the design for the next print. If you know how to fix 3D print warping, please let me know. Then came the never-ending sanding and filling stage. After priming, even more blemishes were revealed, so it was back to sanding, filling and repeating the process again. The running board was primed with Tamiya Primer Grey, and then the sides were covered in Tamiya's brilliant red. Caleb and I had a little trouble finding the right blue for Thomas. We tried one that was too dark, and another that was way too light. Eventually, we landed on Tamiya French Blue. I was still a bit unsure, more on that later. Next up was the lining. Ideally, I wanted the lining to be flush with the loco, so I tried water transfers. But as I mentioned in my Oliver video, I had real trouble sourcing good water transfers. There are commercial lining sheets available in red, but I knew I'd have to find a matching number 1, and I didn't want the number 1 to stick out compared to the lining. I painstakingly tried masking out where I wanted the lining and then spray painting it, but I had an immense amount of paint bleed. I decided it wasn't worth the hassle. After that, it was back to sanding and priming again. This freshly primed Thomas gave me a new opportunity though. I still wanted a darker shade of blue. I tried these two blues, but they were too dark. I then contacted my friend James, whose Thomas model has a very nice blue. He wasn't sure exactly which blue it was though. So, he sprayed Tamiya French Blue and Humbrol French Blue next to his Thomas. The Humbrol seemed a little darker, so I decided to give it a go. The shade was indeed much darker than I initially thought it would be, but I liked it. It was nowhere near as dark as the others I'd tried, and it would better complement the green I planned to use for Percy and Henry later on. It turns out James's Thomas's blue is in fact still Tamiya French Blue, but with a darker undercoat. Once Thomas was in a new coat of blue paint, I returned to the lining and settled on good old-fashioned vinyl. I then got to work cutting the chassis and motor block to fit the 3D printed shell. I modified the 3D funnel to accommodate the soothe smoke units I use. I made sure the hole was big enough for the smoke unit, but that the funnel didn't look too chunky or unsightly. I printed new lamps and painted them white. I then printed a new whistle and painted it gold. And all of these accessories, 3D files, were made available by Jamos Trainos. I installed the new smoke unit and smoothed over an unfortunate crack in his smoke box. He was almost complete, until... This was not good. I glued it back together and I realised it wouldn't work, so I completely recreated the running board. I soon got a face scan of Thomas's smiling face printed, and he finally felt complete. When I started my commissioned Thomas models, I noticed that more updated shells were available, which were a little more accurately proportioned. I also fell back in love with Tamiya French Blue after giving it a much darker base layer before applying the blue. One day, I might revisit my 3D printed Thomas, but since so much work went into this Thomas, I don't think I'll be doing that anytime soon. So, without further ado, here's Thomas.